ASCO 2020 is poised to be one of the best ever. It's going to be virtual, so it's going to be an unusual meeting, but actually the data sets that are being presented are really quite important. And I, for one, am really looking forward to many data sets. So first of all, in non-small cell lung cancer, in the early lung cancer setting, perhaps we've got one of the most important data sets being presented in the presidential session. This is the ADAURA trial. This is a potentially important trial. It's a randomized phase 3 trial in which patients with completely resected EGFR mutation positive non-small cell lung cancer who completed or received their standard of care adjuvant treatment, if indicated or not, were randomized to receive 3 years of adjuvant osimertinib or not. Now, we know from a press release, we haven't seen the abstract, the data, it's a late breaker, but we know from a press release from AstraZeneca that the data monitoring committee stopped the study early because of superiority, and that the trial met the primary endpoint, and the primary endpoint was disease-free survival. So we know this is a positive study. The key question is, let's look at the data, the magnitude of the data. You know, is it a big difference? And is disease-free survival an appropriate endpoint for adjuvant therapy? Is it important to have 3 years of osimertinib to delay relapse? Or should those patients be receiving osimertinib at point of relapse, if they relapse, and in which case is overall survival a better endpoint? Now, we know that targeting EGFR is, really important, and there have been several trials, including the Chinese CTONG 1104 trial, which looked at patients with stage 3 resected lung cancer who are randomized to chemo or gefitinib, which did show a big improvement in disease-free survival. Here at ASCO, they'll be reporting updated data, which is in the public domain, of no overall survival benefit. And this is consistent with what we've seen before in the Radian trial many years ago, which took a mixture of wild type and mutant patients, but focusing on the mutant patients who had resected lung cancer treated with adjuvant erlotinib or not. Again, there was a big disease-free survival difference, but no overall survival difference. In fact, patients were relapsing at a higher rate in the brain if they'd received adjuvant erlotinib than not. Now, osimertinib is a brain-penetrant EGFR inhibitor, so we don't know how this data will pan out. And I, for one, and I think many others, are very much looking forward to the ADAURA data, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussion about its interpretation after the trial has reported. In other areas of non-small cell lung cancer, we have, other really quite important data sets as well. First of all, if we talk about targeted therapies and oncogene-addicted non-small cell lung cancer, we have a, potentially very important randomized trial from China with EGFR mutant disease, looking at taking patients with EGFR mutant disease and randomizing them to SBRT or not. And this trial, the abstract is in the public domain, reports an absolute survival advantage for SBRT. So let's see the data. Is this going to change our practice? Should our patients be getting EGFR TKI with SBRT or not? And let's see what other questions remain. Also, in the field of oncogene-addicted disease, we'll have an update on patients with MET14 variants. We have an update on single-arm data using tepotinib to target this variant. We recently saw at the AACR meeting data on capmatinib, which has recently been FDA approved, and I hope we see some very similar data with tepotinib in this scenario, which I understand has recently been gained approval in Japan for this indication. So plenty of action ongoing in the MET14 space. In the HER2 space, we'll see a really important study looking at a very interesting antibody drug conjugate called DS8201A, targeting HER2. Now, HER2 is a oncogene-addicted type of lung cancer, and this agent has shown very good preclinical efficacy. And in this single-arm phase 2 trial of HER2 mutant and overexpressing lung cancer, we've had very high response rates, 60%. And this trial is going to be really important in taking forward this drug, because this drug has also already shown very clear efficacy in HER2-positive breast cancer. Can we find the same efficacy, the holy grail, for HER2-positive advanced non-small cell lung cancer? I really hope we can, because this is an area of huge unmet need. And then finally, if we talk about the immunotherapy sphere in advanced non-small cell lung cancer, there are three, I think, major data sets that we're looking forward to getting more information about. The first is the Checkmate 9LA trial. This is a really important data set for which we already have a press release from BMS. In this study, patients with advanced non-small cell lung cancer in the first-line setting were randomized to receive 4 cycles of histology-specific chemotherapy with or without maintenance pemetrexed. And in the investigational arm, 2 cycles of chemotherapy together with nivo-ipi in the lung dose, followed by nivo-ipi ongoing. Now, that study, BMS have reported, is a positive study, and in the press release we have a hazard ratio of 0.69, which is a very impressive hazard ratio. So we'll need to see the data in much more detail. What are the groups that are deriving the benefit? Is it driven by the negatives, the 1 to 49%, or the 50% group? And we have to remember that, whilst the control arm is chemotherapy in this trial, that's not what we're currently using in real life. So how do these data pan out to the previous nivo-ipi trial, Checkmate 227, which is FDA-approved regime now, and also, more importantly, chemo-pembro or pembro monotherapy for Europe and other markets as well. We also have very interesting phase 2 data, randomized phase 2 data from Roche called Cityscape trial. In this first-line study, patients were treated either with atezolizumab monotherapy or a very interesting next-generation checkpoint inhibitor, tiragolumab, which is a TIGIT-targeting drug. Now, the combination of atezolizumab plus tiragolumab seems to have a very marked progression-free survival advantage. In fact, the hazard ratio for PFS in the 50% plus group, according to the abstract, was 0.33, which is really spectacular. So it is early data, it is PFS, we haven't seen anything other than the abstract. Very much looking forward to more data in that space. And finally, the other data set is the Canadian academic study, BR34. This is an important study in which patients with upfront metastatic non-small cell lung cancer were randomized to standard histology-specific chemotherapy with or without durvalumab stroke tremelimumab. Unfortunately, it was a negative study, and that has implications for the combination of the immunotherapy plus chemo combination, and we look forward to looking at the details of that study. What happened to overall survival? Was it only marginally negative or completely negative? So very exciting in non-small cell lung cancer, both in early non-small cell lung cancer, oncogene-addicted lung cancer, and checkpoint inhibitors. There's still a lot of data out there.